and see if we can get it through the back door. Okay, it sounds like we got audio here. Remove. No. Audio. Remove. Okay, do we have sound now? How's it going? Do we have sound now? Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2. Working that way. All right. A1. All right. Do we have audio sync? Because the last, as you probably know, I've been having all kinds of tech problems because I'm just all alone here and I'm using what I can afford and throw together. Is the video reasonably well synced? Because last week I used this exact hookup and the video wasn't properly synced. Huh? Well, even if it's only off a little bit, I'm just doing mostly talking, and you guys and gals out there can make it out. But I do appreciate that we at least have sound. It is lip sync. I thought so. I don't understand because the mic's plugged directly into the camera. Time lag between image and sound. Yeah. And I tried using a separate audio input, and it, for some dumb reason, rejected it. But like I said, since I'm primarily talking here and I'm not trying to do a close-up on watches and the like, I please beg you to bear with me. And I will continue to try to sort this problem out. It's all for sure. So how everybody doing? Johnny, Mark, Peprex. Oh, it's a tribulation. If you know anybody who's good at this, that would be willing to work a little freelance and get me sorted out properly, I mean, they could teach me remotely or something, but, you know, help me sort this video thing out because, I mean, the microphone's plugged into the camera. I honestly don't understand why it's not synced because the sound and the video are coming from the exact same source. Weird. Really weird. I think next week I'll just go back to the streaming cam and give up the video capture card as a bridge too far at the present technology level I have. I'll go back to my streaming cam. I just wanted to be able to use the good mic with my live streams because I use the good mic with my pre-records because it records direct to video, no problem, right? But I wanted to use the microphone with my live streams because, you know, frankly, there are probably some people who think my voice is the better part of the show. But the fact is, as a small-time YouTube streamer, I'm just making it up as I go along. I have halfway decent equipment, but having the tools and knowing exactly what you're doing with the tools is the difference between a decent job and a great job, you know. But again, back to the point that we were trying to start with. The second item on the list that was voted last week as a topic is Rolex pushing Tudor into our faces to be the new Rolex, as it were, as they try to migrate upmarket, you know. Hey, B-Matic, how's it going? Apologize for any lip sync difference. It's just a flaw in the system. I apologize. But when you think about it, right, and this has been going on for several years now. In fact, I would say ever since they came out with their own in-house movements, roughly about that time, because obviously that took a lot of investment from Rolex. Rolex was obviously setting them up to do something bigger than they were. In fact, Tudor was on the back burner until the end of the last century. I mean, for a good, decade or two, Rolex wasn't doing a lot with Tudor. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 we got a lot of investment around the late 20s into the teens. And the North Flag actually was the first. And I keep my eye open. Maybe I can, if I find a North Flag at a reasonable price, I might pick one up just for the horological history of it. And it's not a bad field watch. Quarter's Eye. Hey, how's it going, my friend? To add insult to injury, they will continue to increase the prices of all of the Tudor line of watches while continuing to attempt to limit the stock on the Rolex watches. It's an absolute farce. James. Hey, James. Hi, Alex. Hi, everyone, on a rare free weekend afternoon for me. Very cool. I'm really glad because I always appreciate you being in the audience. You always have something interesting to say. And this is something that I've been talking about for a few years. This is something that a lot of people have been talking about, but it is, especially at this last Watches and Wonders. And the reason I wanted to talk about it again is because it's working. I mean, on the positive side, it's not a bad thing. Tudor watches are well made, and they have a legacy through military and navies and special forces. Tudor has a legacy that they can hold their head up amongst anyone else in the industry, including Rolex. But at the end of the day, they are Rolex. That's like saying, oh, Longines kicking Omega's butt. They're Swatch Group companies. Tudor and Rolex are the same company. And the funny thing is, the great irony that I see, and, you know, I don't think I'm the only one who sees this. It is such an irony that it should actually be in the dictionary under irony, that the watch brand that we attach with capitalism, Rolex, is such a capitalist watch. It is a, as I've said before, it is a solid gold chunk of arrogance. The name should just be enough. Step back, mortals, and bow. Die Hard, it's a Rolex. You know, it was a pivotal point of the end of the first Die Hard when he loosens the Rolex and Gruber falls to his death because he was giving up the capitalism for the love of his wife, kind of symbolic thing going on. The Rolex was actually a physical symbol of capitalist greed on this poor woman's wrist. And the irony is that Rolex is a charitable organization, a Swiss charitable organization. So it's a charitable organization in a socialist democracy, right? All they do with that extra money, besides paying their executives probably a little too much, is they build hospitals and schools and stuff like that in Switzerland. It is literally a charitable trust. Hans Wilsdorf died without children. And he willed that the Rolex organization would become a charitable trust under Swiss law, and it is to this day, which is another reason why Rolex is such an unstoppable force in the marketing world, because everyone else is looking to the next quarter. At best, some are looking to the end of the next month. Rolex can look 100 years into the future without any sarcasm, or they are seriously looking that far because they're not going anywhere. They're not driven by a board of trustees who are looking for money. They're not driven by shareholders who are trying to get the most out of it. They are literally a charitable trust. So they are profit motivated, but they are not harnessed to the yoke of short-term returns. As long as they're making a profit, they don't have to make a certain point to make the shareholders happy. As long as they're keeping the doors open through lean years and fat years, they're a charitable trust. And yet they're the most capitalist brand on the planet, arguably. That's a great irony. So, and there was another thing I wanted to address, but let me check some of the comments. Peprex, the Tudors go half price used after a year. That I like. More like 60%, because I was thinking about I had a Tudor first generation Black Bay red bezel smiley face, and I sold it to a good friend. And I'm like, I wouldn't mind having one of them just as a knock around piece. And they retailed for $5 and they're selling for $3 and change. So they're still retaining 65% of their value. I mean, it's close to half, but when you're talking about thousands of dollars, that 15 points is money, But I get what you're saying. Tudor is, Tudor, that's why people are starting to compare Tudor to Rolex. I would compare Tudor more to Ratto. Tudor and Ratto. Because Ratto makes really good watches and they're completely underappreciated because they wandered into the ceramic wilderness in the 90s and so, which actually helped keep them alive during the quartz wars because they had a very, very niche market of people who wanted watches that looked like they came off of David Bowie's arm in The Man Who Fell to Earth. So the whole aspect of, how good the watch is, right? If I was going to make that kind of a comparison, I'd say Tudor is Ratto. Great pieces, well made. I mean, no, I'm not wearing it right now, but I own, and it's a beautiful piece, and I've got a review on it. I think I'm going to do a follow-up as well. I've got a Captain Cook Chrono. I was going to sell it, but I actually had some people ask me about it, and then I realized, why am I selling it? I was going to sell it to buy another watch, but the channel's getting big enough. Companies are letting me borrow pieces, so it's taking some of the pressure off of me, trying to go out and flip the collection every once in a while just to get new pieces for the show, because I do like doing hands-on as opposed to just talking about pictures, although that's probably going to start coming because that's one of the nice things about the channel being big enough. People at least now respect my point of view to at least let me talk about a piece without me actually having it in my hands. But I still prefer doing that. And when you think about this and the Black Bay Chrono, frankly, I think the Ratto is actually slightly better as far as finishing. This has screw down pushers, screw down crown, ceramic bezel, sapphire crystal. Display back, quick release bracelet. Okay. The Black Bay doesn't have a quick release bracelet because Rolex doesn't believe you should change your straps. This watch came with 3 straps. It came with the metal that it's on. Interestingly enough, it came with a beautiful brown alligator leather strap, which I often wear on my IWC Saint-Supri because it's got a dark brown face, and the Ratto strap fits this watch better than it does because this is a black fume dial, and I don't know why they put a brown strap in, and then they also put in a black NATO, but I would compare Tudor to Ratto as far as quality, fit, finish, all of that other good stuff. But that's neither here nor there. The point that I was trying to make, and that I think other people are seeing, is that as Rolex is trying to move upwards in the market and become a true luxury watch, because don't forget, Rolex, one of the reasons, which is another irony, not as great as Rolex being a charitable trust and being so capitalistic, but one of the great ironies about it is Rolex survived the quartz wars predominantly because they were known as a tool watch company, like Zinn is today. And for example, Zinn doesn't even give people a discount if they're a celebrity. Every celebrity you see wearing a Zinn is where it paid retail for it. You got to give them but and Rolex gave people watches. But the fact is, Rolex survived the quartz wars because they were a tool watch. All right. Don't let anybody try to convince you otherwise or ask them for figures and proof. They couldn't give the Daytona away when they first started rolling along with that product. Rolex was known as a tool watch. People wanted the sub. They did have a good Datejust following, but the Datejust in those days wasn't considered a luxury watch. Back then, everybody wore a watch. The Datejust was considered a premium daily wear. All right? And they had some luxury pieces, but everybody has luxury pieces. But Rolex as a brand back in the 70s, 80s, 90s was a tool watch company. And now they are number one because they came out of the gate before everyone because they had such a strong base. I mean, they made the oyster quartz, got burned and ran away. They've only done mechanicals. And they managed to keep the true believers and to keep the purists with them. So when the quartz wars ended I shouldn't say ended, Apple won the quartz wars. But the Swiss watch industry went upmarket to survive. And it was a good move. We've all benefited from it. Some beautiful, fantastic, well-made, beautifully horological, significant watches. But just because the Swiss mechanical watch industry survived by going upmarket doesn't mean that everyone has to start charging ultra-luxury prices all of a sudden. You know? And so now that Rolex is trying to become one of the top tier, you know, quatrain, the holy quatrain, quadtich. But as Rolex wants to become that luxury brand, they're pricing us out. And frankly, Rolex doesn't want people like me buying their watches. They don't. They don't want a casual collector buying their watches. They want people who are buying a Rolex because it's an aspirational purchase. They just got promoted to bank manager and they want everybody to know it. And they said, oh, here's Tudor. You thought you can't afford us now? I'm so sorry for you. Here, buy this Tudor instead. Notice, there's always a Tudor in stock at a Rolex dealer. And they're good watches, like I said. And the other side of the coin is I also want to address something that was brought up. I do not believe in and I don't like the term entry level. And Rolex did not create Tudor as an entry-level Rolex. Hans Wilsdorf did not create Tudor to be an entry-level Rolex. Hans Wilsdorf created Tudor to present Rolex attributes, value adds, to a different market. Hans Wilsdorf had no, he didn't think that someone was going to buy a Tudor and eventually buy a Rolex. He wanted to sell Tudor to a segment of the market that would never buy a Rolex. Tudor was created for, ironically, again, this story is so full of irony. Tudor was created to be an everyman's watch, a mainstream watch. It wasn't created to be an entry level for anything. It was created to be its own brand for a specific market segment. And now Rolex is saying, well, maybe that market segment's a little bigger and it includes you now. And it actually did in the past, but now that Rolex has vacated the tool watch, nothing Rolex makes is a tool watch. I mean, the closest thing you could say that is a tool watch is maybe the Explorer and the Air King. But all of the, heavy hitters in the Rolex stable, the sub's not a tool watch anymore. I mean, it can be used as a tool watch, but that's like saying you can commute in a Ferrari, and some people do. The point there is that Rolex is saying, hey, here's Tudor, we're moving upscale, and the industry is buying it more than I thought they would. Because when I see headlines about how Tudor is crushing Rolex at Watches at Wonders, I'm like, do they even know they're the same company? That's like saying Buick is crushing Cadillac. All the way to the bank for GM. So to have the watch press fawn over Tudor doing what Rolex used to do is just acknowledging that Rolex was right. They could simply change the labels on the chairs and we're no longer allowed to sit there, but we can sit in the other chair. What are your thoughts on that? see. James, I picked up a North Flag last year, and its movement was definitely a motivating factor. Boom! You see, you always have something nice to say, because that's exactly it. It was the first to have the in-house, and it has a display back. The only reason I didn't buy it when I should have is because I had to get past the yellow. I'm not a big yellow dial feature person, but that watch keeps growing on me. Every time I see it, I think I should have gotten it when I had a chance. And I keep my eyes open for one because it is a nice piece and it's horologically significant, And it's a great field watch. Goodbye, my friend. Goodbye. Let's see. Johnny, at the price which they're asking Rolex, they better put much more embellishments to their movements. Tudor price used to be fine, but they're squeezing the old lemon. True. Well, that's why they put the display backs on their newest Daytonas and the like. And those are finished pretty good. I mean, we're still not talking JLC. Rolex is trying to be better than JLC. And now that they got display backs on their watches, they're hoping you spend more time looking at the front of the watch with the word Rolex on it than the back of the watch, because, I mean, this JLC Polaris automatic's got the 1,000-hour JLC movement in it. Internal bezel. Admittedly, the internal bezel turns a little too easily, but nobody's buying this to dive. This, I would argue, I wouldn't have to argue very loudly. I would say this is better than a sub as far as fit and finish goes. The sub's more rugged, but this is a 200-meter dive watch. And with the rubber strap, you can actually wear it for that. And it does have a timing bezel. I just wouldn't trust it with my life. Which, there's the advantage with the Rolex. At least their bezel does stay where you put it. But, I mean, come on. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous piece, right? And so now Rolex is saying that they're better than JLC. And this isn't even the best JLC. The Reverso's... The cheapest Reverso makes the most expensive Rolex look okay. I'm not putting Rolex down. I own one myself. But Rolex putting on airs and saying that they're better than JLC, better than Gerard Perregaux, as good as Audemars Piguet. In one sense, they're pulling up the ladder after themselves. We watch people helped keep Rolex alive during the toughest times, and now they're saying, oh yeah, well, we never wanted your business anyway. You should have been buying a Tudor from day one. I don't know how, that's one of the reasons I have an Air King. I don't want a signature Rolex. I had a Datejust, I sold it. I don't want to feel like that guy. And unfortunately, Rolexes have gotten such a stigma of, if you're not really rich and someone sees you with a Rolex, the first question out of their mouth is it real? Part of that is they don't believe you can afford to buy one, So, and with all the fakes out there, who knows? Which is another reason, like I said, I wear an atypical Rolex because nobody asks if the Air King is real, interestingly enough. But that's all about the marketing positioning, right? So now Rolex is trying to move upscale without doing a lot with their brand, actually. I mean, what are they doing? Their movements are excellent. I mean, their movements are awesome. The movement in the Air King is the same as in the No Date Sub, the new one, the 3120. And it runs on rails. I am so impressed with how well this watch runs. I am so impressed with how well this watch feels. This is a great daily wear watch, but it's at least 30% overpriced. This is a $6,000 watch, and I compare it to other pieces that you can get in that price range, and it performs very well. But once you start moving upscale, Rolex is actually, if you side by side, Rolexes actually do start showing their mainstream roots, as it were. Like Hannibal Lecter talking to Agent Starling, good food is, or something along those lines, good upbringing has given you a bit of length of bone, but you're still a little trashy. And I'm not saying Rolex is trashy, but Rolex is really, really trying to price themselves into a space that there are better alternatives. And they're telling us, well, if you can't afford a Rolex, buy a Tudor. Mark Elkov. I have the Black Bay 2023 red bezel on leather. Yeah, it's a nice piece. But I've had many watches Rolex, and I honestly love the Tudor, and they always upping their game. Well, that's the thing. I mean, Tudor are great watches. That's what I'm saying. They're not entry-level anything. They're their own brand. They're targeting a market that we all live in. I mean, that's my price range that I can pretty much afford without passing out. And they make great pieces. Like I said, I've owned a couple of Tudors, and I had a Tudor Prince, but I got rid of that one because that one did feel like too much trying to be a Daytona really, really bad. And but I do miss the Black Bay, the red bezel Black Bay. I do miss that. That was a really nice piece. So I mean, Tudor is its own brand. So I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with Tudor, but that would be like, for example, Cadillac deciding to just make supercars, right? Nothing under $100,000 for a Cadillac, and then they said, well, we're bringing Pontiac back, and if you want a nice family sedan, buy a Pontiac. But you know what I'm saying. In other words, Tudor was its own brand anyway, right? But you can really feel them manipulating I mean, like I said, when you hear people say things like Tudor crushed Rolex or Tudor beat Rolex at Watches and Wonders, same company, It's like saying one of your children beat the other at the spelling bee. I mean, you still love both of them, and they're still in your family. You're not going to throw the one daughter out on the street because she didn't pass the spelling bee. And in the case of business and marketing, Rolex is laughing all the way to the bank because Tudor may have beaten Rolex at Watches and Wonders, but there are no waiting lists. For some models of Tudor, there are starting to be waiting lists, but not to the scale or the extremity of Rolex imaginary waiting lists, because they're largely imaginary, the waiting lists. But yeah, it's not, like I said, the positive thing is that at least Tudor makes good watches. At least they're not pushing some junk in our faces, but it just makes me think, why the posing? I mean, is Rolex trying that hard to have people not know that it's the same company? I mean, how many people out there actually don't know it's the same company? And yet those people might say something about, Longines and Omega, they're all Swatch Group, blah, blah, blah. What's the difference between watches within the Swatch Group and Omega and Rolex? Okay. You could argue that maybe that since Rolex is a charitable trust, there's less bureaucratic machinations. I would argue maybe the opposite direction, considering it's a charitable trust in a socialist democracy. I bet you in Germany, I believe it's like 35 to 40% of the tax dollar goes to the bureaucracy. I would argue Switzerland is probably higher than that. So that they are like I said, the irony that Rolex is the most capitalist watch brand on the planet and it's run by a charitable trust is such a level of irony. Okay. James, agreed. I think Tudor's path upmarket is thanks to offering watches collectors want, but Rolex moves too slowly to do. Well, Rolex runs both companies. They're letting Tudor be, I mean, Tudor is its own brand. So the people at Rolex are letting Tudor do those interesting things. But they're keeping a close eye on it and a close control on it as well. Because some of the things that are cool that have happened in Tudor have appeared in Rolexes. Again, it's the same company, you know. So them letting Tudor be more itself is also giving Rolex the freedom to be less creative, less free. Because luxury status symbols can't change much. They have to have an iconic design so everyone immediately recognizes what they are, no matter when, no matter where, no matter what circumstances, right? They're never going to change the look of the Submariner anything significantly, just like Omega wouldn't change the Speedmaster. Iconic design and style is baked into all crafted goods. But Tudor, being the mainstream brand, can do more adventurous things and cast off different lines, and maybe some of them stick and become their own legacies. Maybe they don't. I mean, the North Flag could easily have become the anchor for a family of watches, North Flag GMT, North Flag Chrono. But the North Flag didn't gain traction. The Black Bay did. So Rolex is at a point where they don't want to or can't make those kinds of marketing gambles and risks. So they let Tudor do it. But the fact is, they're the same company. Oh, great. Audio and video are very out of sync. Well, you know what? Listen to this as a podcast. I'm sorry. No. Next week, like I said, I'm going to go back to the old streaming camera. It's just I was really trying to get the good camera and the good mic for the streaming, but it's beyond my technical expertise. So I'm just going to go back to a regular old streaming camera and slightly less good microphone. And then that way I'll have avoided all of these technical problems. I really do feel bad about the technical problems because in my day job, I'm a real journalist, but I have more technical assistance there as opposed to me just sitting in my living room with all of this equipment trying to get it to work properly. So I really do feel terrible about it, and I apologize for the bad audio. But next week I will, like I said, I'll go back to my old streaming camera, and the video and audio quality won't be as good, but they'll be in sync. Let's see. James, yeah, audio and video have not been synced since this started, but well, James, I appreciate that. But I can completely understand how people are put off by the non-sync. I would suggest, like I said, play something, like a handheld game that doesn't require sound, and don't look at the screens. I don't know. I really don't know. I'll spend the rest of the show hiding my mouth so you can't really tell where the sound, the synchronization is. But no, I thought let's at least talk about subjects that are important enough that we can get past the lag issues. But I think I'll make it an early show today and, tie this up in a neat bun pretty quickly and get off, and then, try again next week, like I said, with the streaming camera, as opposed to, because I'm using my 4K video camera, the one I use on the road, because I got my hands on an HDMI cable and a video output card, and I thought, here, let's up the game and the quality for everybody, but obviously something isn't working technically, so maybe I need a faster machine. I don't know, but I'm buying a new computer in May anyway. But I do apologize for the audio quality, because I do think this is an important topic to talk about, because it's the market that we have chosen to have our hobby expressed in. I mean, if they play games with us, they play games with the watch industry. I don't think Rolex is playing games. These are serious moves as they're migrating upwards. I mean, look at what JLC did last year and a half ago. They increased their prices 40% across the board just to reposition themselves in the marketplace. You know, it really is. It's something to think about. There are always going to be companies that are going to try to manipulate their position in the market or manipulate other companies' positions in the market. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. Who do you spend your money with? What are you buying? Where are you going? Who are you giving your money to? Every dollar you spend is a vote for the kind of market you like. That's why I'm always so against fakes, because tolerance of fraud foments more fraud. That, little fake that you don't think is a big issue, magnified across the marketplace, creates an aura of brand at any cost, which leads directly to crap like Timepiece Gentleman. It's all serious. It's our money. It's your money. It's your hobby. It's the things you enjoy. Wristwatch check. I'm wearing my Mont Blanc Saint-Exupéry on a rubber strap tonight because I was being semi-casual. I really do like this piece. I consider it pretty much my high-end exit piece, unless something really wild comes along. I'll still buy some. I want to get, for example, the black Mission to Moon swatch with the Snoopy. I just picked up a Bulova, the limited edition lunar pilot with the meteorite dial. I just picked one of those up. Keep an eye out for the review on that. And but yeah, at the high end, the luxury high end is really, really starting to disappoint me. Now, the nice thing, for example, companies like JLC, they came out with new watches and new movements that are so awesomely fantastic. You forget that they raised their prices across the board. At least, some of these companies are giving us something. And the new Rolex suit watch is nice. It really is nice. But they really are charging a lot for a dive watch. And if you compared it to something like the Glashütte CQ, the CQ at the same, well, no, I think the CQ retails higher. It retails, I think, like for 12 and change. But considering what they both sell for used, you're way better getting a Glashütte CQ than you are getting a Rolex sub, in my humble opinion. But I would still buy the sub if I found one at a good price. Tudor is the little table at Thanksgiving. Oh, PC Tuning. How's it going? And Dr. Bob, PC Tuning. I'm glad someone is mentioning Tudor and Rolex are the same company. Yeah, I don't understand why more people aren't talking about that. James, I love the bold color blocking on the North flag, but my dad hated it when he was alive. Getting it 6 years after he passed was a big step in my grieving. It is now more meaningful than ever. Well, see, that's another nice thing about watches, I mean, they're timekeepers, right? You can say memento mori, but you can attach things to them. They're personal, they're manifestations of time. You can attach a memory to them, and it can reinforce that memory. I mean, and that goes for other things too, everything from a brooch to a coffee cup. But watches, yeah, they're what we've decided to have fun with. And watches are so beautiful and have such a variety of expression. You can find a watch for every mood, every clothing, every situation. Somebody makes a watch that suits every situation perfectly at some point in time and place. Funnily enough, the Polaris isn't a dive watch. Well, it's not really a dive watch. But it is a 200-meter compressor design with a timing bezel sports watch. But yeah, you know what I meant, though. Well, actually, we could compare it then to any other of the no-date Rolexes. Although, if you compare it to, say, for example, an Oyster Perpetual, which retails for what, 7 and change, 6 and change, and sells used for 8 and 9, you can get yourself a Polaris used for like 6 or 7, if I'm not mistaken. So even if you don't consider it a dive watch and compare it to some of the other no-daters, even against a sub, I would definitely, well, I mean, I do own one. I would buy one. JLC makes some fantastic pieces. They really do. And they make such fantastic pieces, I'm only slightly angry at them for raising their prices the way they did. But then also, I got mine already. I wouldn't have minded another one, though. I really was thinking of selling this one and buying the Chrono, but now the Chrono's out of my reach. Thinner than the Daytona, by the way. Apparently, the line is regarded as a sport watch line. See, there you go. Sport watch, I'll take that. Tudor needs to do more than just a black bay. Well, they got so many quarters eye. How's it going? Tudor does so many different lines. It's just we focus on the black bay. You know, like I said, the North Flag should have taken off, in my humble opinion, more. Maybe it was the yellow. I don't know. Maybe if they'd use an orange hand or a blue hand or white on white. I mean, white on black, but you know what I meant. Hands and indices white. Would it have changed the North Flag's future? I don't know. But they did, or maybe because the North Flag had like that plastic bezel underlay, it looked a little odd. I don't know. But the North Flag is a really nice watch. Like I said, if I found one at a reasonable price, I would pick one up myself in a heartbeat. But yeah, Tudor. Well, Tudor actually also makes quite a few nice dress watches and some other pieces. But yeah, well, how many marquee brands does any given watchmaker have? I mean, if you think about Omega, Seamaster and its variants, Speedmaster and its variants, nobody cares about the Railmaster. I have a Globemaster, one of the most underrated ones in their lineup. Nobody cares about the Globemaster. So if you think about Omega, they really only have the Speedmaster, Aquaterra, and Seamaster as their marquee pieces. Rolex has got more than that. Daytona, Datejust, Sub, and Explorer. They, to have a lot of marquee brands is actually not that commonplace. So for Tudor to have the black, okay, now they could use a second or a third good, strong line, but they've only actually been back in the scene for about 20 years. They may be planning on all kinds of stuff that we don't know about. But then again, they've done quite well with the Black Bay line, with the various numbers, the 42 and the 39, 38, the Black Bay 58 and the Black Bay, they've fleshed that family out quite well. There are a lot of watches people want in that lineup, which a lot of other companies can't say. I mean, Rado currently, I'm wearing the Mont Blanc. Mont Blanc is at a different, they just to have people recognize Mont Blanc as a good watch company, they're dancing. But if you think of someone like Longines, the Hydra Conquest, they've got a couple of others like their Master Collection, some of their pieces there. Not too many companies have strong marquee products that are recognizable by a large number of people without prompting. PC tuning. James, I actually found that while doing research on the Polaris, I've been seriously considering upgrading to a Polaris that's available for a pretty good price at a local gray dealer. Well, yeah, you could, like I said, I think you could get one for around $6, give or take. And if you can get one for less than that, you're in good shape, because those are really nice watches. And now they retail leather strap $10K, So if you can get one for $6 or less, you're in good shape with the Polaris. It really is a nice watch. Really is. It's my girlfriend's favorite piece in my collection. Maybe Tudor can pick up the Milgauss baton and run with it. The problem, Dr. Bob's nightmare, the problem with the Milgauss is that the tech in it is obsolete, and it's a moving target now. I mean, this Omega is 15,000 Gauss, so 15 Milgauss. Because it's got a silicon escapement. So the Milgauss is actually under protected against magnetic fields compared to they don't boast about it, but the escapement in the Zenith El Primero Chronomaster, in all the new El Primeros, it's a silicon escapement. So this is more anti-magnetic than the Milgauss. And part of the thing about the Milgauss, it was big and chunky because it had that soft iron core wrapping the movement. It had an inner case to deflect magnetic fields. So if they released the Milgauss now, it would be a design thing. It wouldn't be a tech thing. Because when Omega first came out with the silicon escapement, they came out with an Aquaterra that had kind of a Milgauss pattern and design style. So now if Tudor came out with a Milgauss, it would have to, number one, be at least Metas, which is, I believe their latest one is, they did come out with a Metas. So that one is more anti-magnetic than the Milgauss, because Metas is 15,000 Gauss in 5 seconds. So the Tudor Metas qualified is already better than the Milgauss. That's the problem with the Milgauss, is that at this point it's just a name. The tech in it is obsolete. So it would be a design thing, a style thing, a family name at this point. I mean, they could call it the Milgauss cubed or something, or Milgauss to the X power or whatever. But unfortunately, that train has left the station. There are other watches with better anti-magnetic properties for different technological reasons. James to Quarter's Eye. I thought it was an odd decision to add a racing chrono and a GMT to the Black Bay collection instead of a Field Explorer in line with the Ranger. I agree. Quarter's Eye. The Black Bay line is played out at this point. Well, I wouldn't say played out. It's been extended as far as it could, but people will still buy them. They'll be played out when nobody buys them or don't want to buy them anymore. Dr. Bob says, okay, love your content. Thank you. Like I said, next week I'll use the streaming camera, slightly less quality, but at least synchronized. What about the Pelagos? I liked the old Pelagos. Actually, the current Pelagos, they have the small Pelagos with the black dial and the smooth indices, and they have the older big 42 Pelagos. I prefer the blue that have the kind of almost like fuzzy indices. The old Pelagos I like a lot. And if I were going to buy a Tudor and I couldn't find a Smiley, I've already decided I want to jump back into the water and get a ceramic blue Seamaster. But if I didn't get the blue Seamaster, which is 65 at retail, you go 6,500 euros. The Pelagos is like 5.5. So there's only about $1,000 difference, €1,000 difference between a Pelagos and a Seamaster. And at that point, I would buy the Seamaster. But I do like the Pelagos. If I got a Pelagos, if I could find a used Pelagos at a reasonable price, like under 35, in good shape box and papers, I'd buy that. Because that is a great piece. I do like the Pelagos. So that's another facing Tudor has. Tudor doesn't just have the Black Bay, it has the Pelagos. And the new one is okay, but the old one I like better, which they still make, so win-win. James, Quarters Eye says to James, I'm no longer impressed or interested in anything from the Black Bay line, chronograph or otherwise. Oscar, how's it going, Oscar? I like Tudors more than Rolex. Well, no, I mean, Tudors are great pieces. They really are. I was just talking about Rolex trying to do a frontsies, backsies in the line with us. You know, you want a Rolex, tough, you can't get one, so here, buy a Tudor. Tudor should be its own brand. Rolex shouldn't be trying to position Tudor as the new Rolex. Tudor should be Tudor, and Rolex should be Rolex. That's all I wanted to point out. James, at Peprex, at Tudor made a Pelagos 39 with a matte bezel and dial, I would own one. Peprex, same. The matte texture dial on the original 58 is so good. Well, see, that's the thing. I like the textured indices on the old Pelagos as well. Quarters Eye, Peprex, I never liked the Pelagos. It's just my personal preference. Yeah, everyone's entitled to their personal preference. If you like the Pelagos, that's fine, but I wouldn't waste my money on one. Quarters Eye, Rolex was an affordable tool watch when they first came out. Now they're priced ridiculously high. I don't see the justification. My point exactly. They survived the quartz wars because they were tool watches and they were bought by enthusiasts and people who wanted a good watch and weren't. See, when Seiko and Casio and all were saying, hey, we got cheap, good watches, Rolex people said, no. I'm going up Mount Everest or into the Mojave or down in the ocean or whatever. I need a good tool watch. And so Rolex, that's what helped Rolex survive the quartz wars, the fact that it was a tool watch company. And now they're saying we're not a tool watch company, we're a luxury watch company, screw you, buy a Tudor. I mean, that's the whole rant tonight. Ooh, we're almost at the top of the hour, and I did promise my lady friend I would meet her later. So let's go through the last comments, and then we'll pick it up next week with better synchronized sound. Oscar, I just bought a vintage Wittenauer, which says Longines too. I went to their page, and they're owned by Bulova. Okay, Wittenauer was an old American company, and yeah, I believe they were American. They might not have been. They might have been a Swiss company. But the thing is, they were an old company that had their own line of product. They were very well known. And they did some collaborations with Longines. And then during the quartz wars, Longines managed to stay alive, joined the Swatch group. Wittenauer didn't survive like a lot of other. Over 60% of the Swiss watch industry disappeared between 1980 and 1990. That's why they called it a crisis in Switzerland. Because 2/3 of the watch industry just disappeared in 10 years, 15. So, and Wittenauer was one of those casualties. And so they got bought up. And Bulova is owned by Citizen. So it's I could believe that Wittenauer is owned by Citizen. I thought Citizen was also owned Timex. It's just that Timex uses a ton of Miyota movements. But Bulova is owned by Citizen, which gives Citizen an opportunity to really flex their horological muscles, make some cool watches without the stigma of having a department store Japanese name on it. Bulova is pretty much a department store watch brand, but it has a really, really fantastic legacy. Bulova made the Accutron. The first electronic watch, tuning fork. Bulova used to be big time, and they were a New York company, and they wound up getting bought up during the quartz wars. But Wittenauer could come back. That would be a good brand. I would like to see Wittenauer come back. I wouldn't mind seeing them come back. But the fact that Citizen has turned Bulova into a really strong brand, I think, is kudos to Citizen, frankly. Because Bulova has a lot of respect and has maintained a lot of the respect that it had earned over the years, as it were. Let's see. The Ultra Gauss is a 55 millimeter. PC tuning. It would be cool if Rolex developed a Milgauss that served the same purpose as the Deep Sea, almost the same like anti-magnetic novelty watch. Yeah, that would be cool. James at Oscar. Yes, the Wittenauer brand had an early partnership with Longines, exactly. As I said, it was sold to different owners a few times. I think it is now under the Bulova and the Citizen Group. Right. James at PC Tuning. Can the Milgauss continue on as a ridiculously overbuilt tool watch, but I shudder to think how much Rolex would charge. Jimmy John, hey, how's it going, my friend? I can't get over the thought that most a Tudor when they really want a Rolex. Well, that's the other thing is that's why Tudor lives under the stigma of a poor man's Rolex. It wasn't created to be a poor man. It was created to serve a different market. I mean, Hans Wilsdorf created Tudor to offer Rolex value to a different market. He didn't expect anybody buying Tudor to buy Rolex eventually. He didn't create Tudor as a starter brand or as a entry-level watch. He created Tudor as its own company to serve its own market segment. It's just that Rolex is really trying to, push its, that brand in our faces and say, well, we're no longer tool watches, everybody, but Tudor still is. Buy them. We want to be Patek Philippe. We want to be, they don't want to, they don't want to be JLC because JLC is not as popular, but they're not as good as JLC, that's for sure. But they want to be, they want to join the triumvirate. They want to be considered in the same breath as AP, Vacheron, and Patek. It's going to take them a while, but they're really trying hard. And while they're trying to move up market, they're giving us Tudor. Oscar was thinking about that. The mechanism is mechanic and Swiss made. Well, it is. Jimmy John, it'd be true if Tudor releases plenty of watches Rolex will never make. Even though Tudor is owned by Rolex, they're technically competitors. Jordan Brand is competitor. Yeah, well, yes and no, because the holding company is a charitable trust. So there's not that pressure to, outperform. I strongly believe that these are very, very, very controlled actions. Very. Rolex knows exactly what it's doing with the Tudor brand, and it knows exactly what it's doing with the Rolex brand, in my humble opinion. They are doing exactly what they plan to do with Tudor to increase its prominence to help Rolex move upward in the marketplace. Rolex doesn't want to sell to the same people that Tudor is selling to. And Tudor didn't sell to the Rolex niche when it was created. Rolex was a premium tool watch back then. And now it's not. Now it's a luxury sports watch, luxury tool watch, I guess you can call it. But Rolex is a luxury brand at this point. It's not a tool brand. Zinn is a tool brand. Tudor is still a tool brand, but they're pricing themselves up the market too. Let's see. Rix Forkaten. I apologize for not being able to pronounce it properly. Rix Advocaten. Do you know any good watch that looks like a Breitling Navitimer but cheaper? Zinn. I was just talking about Zinn. Ba-boom. Zinn actually has a licensed version of the Navitimer. So it's a legitimate Navitimer. Zinn makes one, and it's about 30% cheaper. New. So that means used, you can pick it up really at a good price. And it's slightly smaller, so it's more wearable as well. So on that note, we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to call it. Next week, like I said, we'll go back to the old camera and mic setup, so we'll be back in audio sync, and we won't have this inconvenience. But until next week, I love you all. Have a fantastic day. Live long and prosper. And also have a great evening. Seiko. Oh, yeah, Seiko makes some good stuff, too. But then again, they started it all with the quartz crisis.